President Trump's newly released 2026 budget plan would slash non-defense domestic spending by $163 billion, while increasing spending on national security, but no word yet on details for income taxes, tariffs, entitlement programs, or the budget deficit. Join us now, OMB Director Russ Vought. Russ, it's good to see you this morning to try to get whatever details we can get. And many times the devil's in the details. I don't know if we have a lot of those to go around, but just reading some of your comments, you're talking about gutting a weaponized deep state. And that's where you're going to try and get the $163 billion in cuts. Like what?
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, the first stage of this is to focus on the annual appropriations process, which is your agencies, right? So this is not the entirety of our future budget. This is what's needed to go now to get the appropriations started. This is the part that Congress has a vote on every single year. So we believe it is totally appropriate to go back to pre-COVID levels, to have a 20% reduction to non-defense spending while we're increasing Homeland Security, while we're increasing Veterans Affairs, infrastructure, and the Department of Defense, and getting to a defense top line of $1 trillion. We also have a different line of effort going on with regard to reconciliation, with the tax cut extensions, with savings that are needed to be able to pay for a good chunk of that. And so that is happening right now. And so we don't want to confuse that debate, but we also need to get started, and we want to show Congress the extent to which we're finding savings through DOGE, which we just know that there is bureaucracy that needs to be cut back. And our view is that this is both a personnel issue, and President Trump has changed out all the personnel and leadership at these agencies, but there's underlying bureaucracies and programs that are wasteful and lead to both a country that has a federal government that's woke, dividing the American people, and weaponized. And that weaponized part can be regulatorily, it can be through enforcement. I've seen it at the CFPB, and that's something we're fundamentally changing with this budget.
Russ, I have to read this just because it's I don't know if I've ever seen anything like it. But over the last 4 years, government spending aggressively turned, this is you, I think a quote, aggressively turned against the American people. Trillions of dollars were used to fund cultural Marxism, radical green new scams, and even our own invasion. No agency was spared in the left's taxpayer-funded cultural revolution. That's pretty strong language from the OMB.
It is strong, and it's based on the fact that the country saw and put President Trump in office to deal with the reality that when you have the Department of Education funding the indoctrination of preschoolers and funding the teaching of teachers to be revolutionaries in the classroom, and have a Health and Human Services that is trying to trans our kids through the grant programs, and has research programs at NIH that is funding gain-of-function research that contributed to the last pandemic, you have something that is fundamentally wrong in this country. And we want to make sure that the Congress knows the extent to which we have concerns with many of these programs and agencies, and it's going to finally require them to cut spending.
You're going up. This is would be the largest defense increase in quite a while for defense spending. But you're also talking about air safety as well. You've seen some of the recent reports about Newark Airport and other places. So those would be increased.
We would do it. We increased the FAA. We will also be having a proposal that goes up in conjunction with the Secretary of Transportation to make sure we finally deal with the investment needs of the air traffic control modernization. I heard your report just now. We're hoping to take care of a major chunk of that as part of the reconciliation bill. So again, we have these two tracks. One is what is done through the annual appropriations process every single year, most of the funding of the bureaucracy. And one are the reconciliation, which are generally at the beginning of an administration. We want to make sure both tracks are moving forward, that they don't confuse each other. And we certainly are going to fund air traffic controls and infrastructure and every other needs that we believe is important.
You're going to need all Republicans. I can't imagine a Democrat, or you get anything, Democrat votes on a 13% increase in defense spending, while everything else, as you say, you actually use the word gutted.
Well, that's an important question and point. Like, we want to we want to break the paradigm of relying on Democrats for defense increases and homeland security increases. That is why we consciously put those increases on the mandatory side to use reconciliation so that we don't have a bogged down process where we're moving towards a shutdown because Democrats are going to force our non-defense spending to go higher, or they flat out reject the homeland security dollar increases. We want to break that paradigm, use Republican-only votes to get the defense increases and make it much easier to have a focused fight on cutting non-defense spending through the appropriations process.
Russ, can you just speak to what you think is going to be I imagine, some blowback to reducing the budget for the FBI, what you think the impact will be as a function of that? I also see that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives is also on the list to be cut, and I think quite meaningfully, and how you think about gun violence in America as a result in terms of just those folks, both the FBI and that other agency.
Yeah, both of those. We're not cutting law enforcement officials at all. All law enforcement officials are preserved. We're cutting back on bureaucracy. In the case of the Bureau of Alcohol and Tobacco Firearms, we saw a regulatory apparatus that tried to make it a crime to own a pistol brace used by disabled veterans in the last administration, impacting millions of individuals without any kind of due process that would allow them to speak into the process. I mean, we view that as the kind of thing that's a fundamentally flawed bureaucracy that, yes, our new leaders are changing over time, but we have to take steps to dismantle that bureaucracy that leads to those kinds of results. We see something similar in EPA. When EPA enforcement, when you have criminal statutes that are under the jurisdiction of EPA, and they put a 77-year-old Navy veteran named Joe Robertson in jail for building 4 ponds on his ranch to fight wildfires, that is something that needs to be dismantled. And we go by agency to agency, and we see this everywhere, and that is what has informed our cuts.
I think one of the questions that I'd ask, for example, about the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, I mean, gun deaths now are the leading cause for children and teens in America. So while I would agree with you that, you know, if there was a handle that was impacting people that shouldn't have been sold or shouldn't have been regulated, that's one thing. But if it's the leading cause of death in America for children and teens, you would think that would be an important agency, and whatever bureaucracy should be focused on that, no?
It's not going away. All of the law enforcement officials will continue to be there. They'll have adequate resources across the law enforcement agencies to be able to perform their key functions. But where we have seen bureaucracy that we have taken issue with, we've taken steps to deal with that.
All right, Russ, when I read it, the skinny budget is because of the is it referring to that because of the $163 billion that's being cut, or is this sort of just a framework for what to expect? It reminded me of a skinny margarita right away, which I see people ordering. What do you mean?
We mean a skinny budget is kind of the way we describe the budget for just the discretionary. So we acknowledge, and this is not meant to speak, that we have programs on mandatory side, our economic assumptions, our deficit path. That will come once we get through the lion's share of the work on reconciliation. Okay. All of that will come. But right now, we can't wait to get the appropriations process started.